Hey YouTubers, Roland Martin here with another YouTube adventure. Okay, hey, I know you've heard of the Tokyo rig. Well, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was down in Mexico and we caught a lot of fish on the Tokyo rig. I went with 2 or 3 guys and we caught them each and every day on the Tokyo rig. Now, VMC makes a great Tokyo rig and you can buy it for $3 or $4. But I started making my own this last week and they work great. And you can make them for next to nothing. Okay, so let me show you how I got started. This particular one is the big heavy duty one for flipping. That's a 1/2 ounce tungsten weight. It's a great big heavy duty swivel on the end. And there's really 2 or 3 different kinds of Tokyo rigs that I'm going to talk about making. One is the big flipping one that would be great for just the heavy cover. 2 would be another one that would be just a medium-sized one with, say, a smaller weight, a 1/4 ounce weight, just working the shorelines, working the grass flats, working the lily pads with, say, regular casting tackle, just casting it in with 15 or 20 pound test, say, fluorocarbon or monofilament or even braid. And then the third rig that I want to talk about making is a small one with a very small swivel and a very small size leader and a smaller weight. That would be safe for smallmouth bass, for real shallow water applications, and for just clear water applications in general. The small Tokyo rig. Okay, let's get started. Let's talk about my favorite thing. Let's talk about fishing my 5-inch green pumpkin Senko. This is the 297 that you see me fish all the time. It's a 5-inch Senko. So the hook for that Senko is a 4/0 EWG. It's called a superline hook. Now, if you notice at the bottom, it's very important to see that it has superline on there. That means the superline is just way tough and way strong a hook. Okay. And with that, I'm going to use a swivel. I'm going to use the medium-sized swivel. This is actually rated for 65 pound test. I probably don't need to go quite that heavy, but let's just go that heavy anyhow. Okay, now there's a couple different kinds of leader material I'm going to use. I'm going to go from the very heaviest, number 15, which is real thick and heavy like this one. And I can also go down to the next size, a number 12. That's this size right here, which is really plenty heavy enough. And I go 10 and 8, I can go all the way down to the much lower categories. Okay, let's cut off about 6 inches of line. I got plenty of leader material. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop in that line right there. I'm just going to cut it around like this. I'm just going to make it a loop like this. I'm just going to come like that, make a nice little circle, make it nice and small. Just make it small as I can make it, like that. Okay. Now, straighten that out, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I made the first part of just a loop. Okay. So now I have a little loop. If you can notice, it's a little loop. And I'm going to take the hook, and I want to end up with it in the up position. So when I come down the wire, I come down the wire and I come through have to pull it through that little area there. Okay. Remember now, this is hanging down. This is the weight part. So then the next thing I want on there is the swivel. The swivel, I'm going to have to come up the other side. I'm going to come up this side right here. I'm going to come up the bottom side, the bottom. And now I got the swivel on that loop. Now I'm going to do a haywire twist. I'm going to cut this leader without using those dikes. Okay, now I'm going to tie a haywire twist. So I'm coming around that loop one time, come around it twice, come around about 3 times. Now, the problem with using a pair of dikes and cutting anything with dikes, particularly wire, you end up with a sharp little tip. So to eliminate that, you twist it off. Now to twist it off, you take that little tag end and go straight up with it. Go straight up to the top with the tag end. And then you make a little crank deal. You come halfway down on the little tag end right here and make a little crank, like so. Now I'm going to twist this whole thing around in a circle. It comes right off. It just broke right off. It broke right off, and in breaking off, there is 100% no little tick. There's no little thing sticking out there. There's 0. It's nothing to catch weeds with, nothing to cut your hand with. And what you've ended up with now is the line would be tied here, the hook is here, and here the hook points up. Now you have this leader going down, which is going to be to your weight. Now you have a lot of choices in weights. Here's a 3/4 ounce weight. If say, now instead of putting the weight on like this, remember now this is going to the bottom. So what you want to do if you want to go through the heavy grass and stuff, you don't really want it that way. You want it the other way. If you have a sharp weight, it's better to have a bullet weight like this. Now it'll go through the grasses and through the stuff better with it in that configuration than it would be if it were the other way around. Now that's a heavy weight. Let's go to say a 1/2 ounce weight. Not even that. It's probably 3/8 of an ounce weight. In a 3/8 of an ounce weight, I'll come down through the top. Now, when you cut this off, you can use your dikes for that, of course. I cut it off about 2 or 3 inches. You could have it longer. You could have it 3 or 4 inches, but I just like it about 3 or 4 inches. I'll cut it off like this to them. And now all you have to do to keep that in position is just make a simple right-hand bend on that thing. It's a simple right-hand bend. It holds the weight on there. That's it. You've made a Tokyo rig. It's just slicker than it can be. Now the advantage with that rig, it goes through a lot of cover. And here's the advantage of it. Say it's spawning season and you don't know where the bass are spawning and they're just around the shallow water and they're in the spawning area. If you drop this Tokyo rig on the bottom, it's going to sit like this. And now as I hit it, the weight is basically going to almost stay still. And the worm is going to hop and jump around quite a bit and you're going to get a lot of action on the worm itself. Now if you had a regular Texas hook rig, what would happen? The second you went to jig it, it would move the worm along. And you jig it some more and move the worm along. With this, you can actually jig it with the worm and the hook. The hook will jump around and the weight will basically stay in the same position. So you can sit right in the bed, or if you don't even know where the bed is, you're just throwing it into an area that looks kind of suspicious, or maybe you saw a swirl, or maybe you just a nice little round hole in the grass. You say, well, that could be a bed. You throw your Tokyo rig in there. You just kind of shake your rod tip. Just shake your rod tip and watch your line. Don't you see your line jump? Hey, you might have one. Okay, so that's the medium-sized rig. That's the rig I'd use for, say, a 5-inch plastic worm like the Senko. Now, I work with Yamamoto, you know that, and I'm in love with this plastic worm. There's a lot of good plastic worms. I just don't think that there's a better one myself than this Senko. Okay, to rig it, I'll just rig it the standard way. I come through the top about 3/8 of an inch, come out the side. Okay, come up on the shoulder, push it back up on the shoulder. Okay, push it up on the shoulder. You come through the worm body right back there. You can have the hook laying flat like that. Now, you have a fully rigged Tokyo rig that's just 100% ready to go. And believe it or not, you'd think that all gets in the way. You'd think that you'd lose fish with it. I catch more fish per strike with this Tokyo rig. I just don't hardly ever lose them. It's just a very efficient way of catching them because that's pretty loose. And when they get it, they really get this good and they forget about that weight. The weight's just not a big deal. And sometimes when you have a big weight like this and the weight's in the fish's mouth, when you set the hook, that wedges the jaw open. And that's one reason why you miss a few strikes when you set the hook with the big heavy weight. So the weight itself opens the fish's mouth. This isn't that way. Now it's okay. We've made that big heavy rig. Now this is a heavier one I just made up. I used the 15 gauge wire. It's a couple 100-pound test. I use a big heavy hook again. Now there's other things you can do to flip and pitch in the heavy weeds. For example, I can take a creature type of bait like this cowboy is a good example, and I can come through that hook and hook it up Texas style, just like I did the Senko. Come through about 3/8 of an inch, slide it right up on the hook, turn it around. Okay, bury the thing in there. Boom. Now I have a flipping weight, a creature weight that's ready to go for the heavy cover. Now, in big heavy situations like lily pads and hyacinths and in the big reeds at Okeechobee and all the kind of matted up stuff that you find around South Florida and a lot of places in the country, this is a great rig. It's actually more weedless and penetrates even better than just a regular worm, because see that weight, see how it's pointed at the bottom? When it hits into the heavy cover, it goes right through there and it pulls this right with it, just slicker than anything, just pulls it right on down. And I don't know, it just seems like it goes through the heavy cover better than anything I've ever seen. So you can see there's 3 or 4 different applications you can make for fishing the Tokyo rig, from the heavy cover to the shallow water, even to the ultralight stuff. Hey, it's a great way to fish, and you can make them for next to nothing. Listen, I post every Wednesday about 6 o'clock, and I post every Sunday about 6 o'clock, and then I do every Friday a little what's happening, Roland, for like a weekly update. And I really enjoy doing these videos. And hey, I want to thank you again for subscribing. I got a lot of subscriptions now, and my advertisers are so happy, and I just love you guys to death. Thanks for subscribing. Thank you. I love it. And so I hope you watch, and I hope you subscribe. Thank you.